I'd like to call the meeting for Parks and Recreation to order. May we have a roll call, please?
Connor,
Here.
Lombardo,
Here.
Hardy, Hannah,
Here.
Boys.
Here.
All committee members are present except for Councilman Hardy.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
The minutes are approved. We only have one item coming before us this afternoon, and that's a resolution recognizing and congratulating the Ellet High School girls basketball team for their outstanding achievement in winning the City Series basketball championship and declaring an emergency. This is sponsored by Councilman Garrett and Councilman McKittrick. And Councilman McKittrick, if you'd like to share some words.
Go.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the third year straight that our women's basketball team at Ellet has won the city championship. It also includes that they have won 27 city games in a row. Their record is 16-5, and I'd like to wish them well in the postseason coming up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other committee members to share comments or questions?
Wow.
Any other council members? Mr. Lombardo?
I just wanted to congratulate them. That's awesome. Third in a row, you said, and 27 straight city. Wow. My goodness. All right. Well, yeah, good luck in the postseason.
And if I might say, since Councilman Lombardo is a big St. V fan, one of the players was a transfer from St. V to the Ellet team and is quite a good player.
Thus the City Series championship. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you. Any additional comments, questions? Hearing none, may we have a motion to approve the resolution?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Excuse me, was that
Suspend.
motion to suspend the rules
To
because it is
suspend
its
the
first
rules, I'm sorry.
reading?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Motion
Motion to approve.
or suspend the rules? Second?
Yeah, his motion was to suspend the
All in
rules, and I'll
favor?
second it. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. With that, our meeting is concluded. Thank you so much.
Our next committee today will be the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Hardy, and Lombardo. Again, that's the Public Service Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you. It's 2 o'clock, and our next committee of the day is the Public Service Committee. Those committee members are Kamer, McKittrick, DeShazier, Hardy, and Lombardo. We do have all committee members present except for Councilman Hardy. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. Yes, I would like to move forward and call the public service meeting to order, please. We did have a meeting last week. Can I get approval of those minutes, please?
Motion to approve minutes?
Second?
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We do have two new pieces in front of us, and since I'm participating Zoom, I'm going to ask Sarah if she could read those in for me, please.
Item number 1 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts for the painting of fire hydrants in the City of Akron water service area and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. And I do see we have our Service Director, Chris Luttle, with us. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of committee. Yes, this is our annual fire hydrant program. This legislation will allow us to bid and award the painting of our fire hydrants. We have over 12,000 fire hydrants in our system we're responsible for. So this is a multi-step operation that we do. The contractor goes, visits each fire hydrant. They totally take all the paint off, all the rust off, and primer the hydrant. Then they return a second time and they paint the hydrant with the high visibility yellow. Then they have to come back one more time and they paint the dome a different color. The top of the dome is the volume that the hydrant has, so red being the lowest and white being the highest. So when the fire department arrives, if there's a choice between a white domed hydrant or a red domed hydrant across the street, then obviously they're gonna pick the white dome hydrant. This legislation will allow us to do about 1,900 hydrants based on last year's pricing, but until we get the bid, and we won't know what that price is. So it's right around $100 a hydrant to paint these hydrants. This legislation will allow us to do just under 20% of our total hydrants in our system. So we've hit probably 95% of all the hydrants at least once, and now we're gonna try to go through and keep them on a 5-year rotation. Obviously, some of the residential streets, we're gonna get longer life out of them, but our main thoroughfares where they get with more road salt and more just road debris and weathering, they're gonna have to probably be painted again every 5 years. So with that, I will take any questions, sir.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Committee members, any questions or comments for Chris Luttle? I do not see no hands. Anyone online with us? I do see Councilwoman Linda Mobian.
Thank you, sir, for acknowledging me. Mr. Luttle, I know this has been a discussion we've had for a number of years now. Do we anticipate, I know there's been discussion about developing programs within the community with different groups, because other cities and states across the country have done it. Is there consideration for that? Or are you just looking for a professional person? I don't know if you're still in the contract with Tamara's or what. Could you speak to that, please?
Well, we are gonna advertise on bonfire. We always try to get a minority contractor to bid on this, but the multi-step process does hinder some of our smaller contractors to do it. It takes specialized equipment that they need to vest in, the stripping or the sandblasting, and then the 3-step process on painting. But there again, we will try to do our best. We know we can't do it in-house with our own staff like we used to. We used to hire seasonals. Our process basically was using a wire brush, knocking off all the rust and hand painting them. And we found that that was not sustainable because we were doing it almost every year. So we will look at that again, but to do it with a community group is just, it doesn't seem feasible. And Tamarius was the low bidder last year, and then I would assume they're going to bid this year, but this will be advertised across our whole system, and we're hoping we get multi-bids to this project, because it is, you know, it's $200,000, so we're hoping we get somebody else to bid.
So, Mr. Chair, if I can follow up, please. So, Mr. Ludlow, are you saying that you could have more than one contractor to do this?
Well, if we get more than one bid, madam, we could look at a split award. We could do that, but there again, we'll have to wait and see how the bids come out, because we've done that in other projects, especially if we get a small contractor to give them a shot and break this up a little bit. We absolutely could look at that.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question. Just out of curiosity, you said white and red. What's the difference?
It's the volume. So a white hydrant might be fed by a 6-inch water main, so they're only going to get so much volume out of the hose. But if it's fed by an 18-inch water main, then it's going to take more than you and I to hold that hose, Sam.
I get it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Lombardo.
Right, I just agree with this legislation, because there's no way we're gonna get, 100 community groups to paint, 1,200 hydrants and do it all the same, and according to, the amount of paint that not the amount of paint, the specialized paint and the process that it goes through. So the community group thing is just not, I don't think, like Mr. Ludlow says, feasible. So I definitely agree with this, and I support this ordinance.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Councilwoman Amobian?
I just want to make it clear that I don't disagree with the specifications and the need for high quality work, but I just want to make sure that we're not ignoring other potential contractors. We have dealt with this one company for years, and they've gotten the contract, and we've still had people questioning how many are they doing, because we see a lot of hydrants out there that need to be done. And it would be nice just to see the process. So I don't know, whoever gets it, it would be nice just to observe, just to see how difficult this work is or how challenging. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions or comments? With that, Chris, what's your pleasure on this one?
A consent's fine, sir.
Motion for consent?
I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor
Aye.
for consent agenda? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to our second piece, Sarah, if you don't mind reading that in, please.
Item number 2 is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids or obtaining quotes as appropriate, to enter into a contract or contracts for the purchase and installation of speed tables and related traffic calming materials and equipment, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Sarah. Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is something that we're going on 3 years, piloting our speed tables, which it's been very successful or by our residents. And I have Michelle DeFiore sitting behind me, who's put countless hours into this, dealing with community feedback and all you councilman members. So this legislation, we're going to reinstall the 30 tables that we own. This legislation will allow us to bid the installation and the removal of the 30 tables. There is necessary hardware in this legislation that we have to purchase. There's 300 lag bolts, and then in each one of these tables, so that's 300 holes that has to be drilled in each one of these tables that put on these streets. In this legislation, though, we have increased it. The mayor's vision for this is to increase this program. So we are going to purchase 40 more of the solar signs will give us a total of about 80 to put out throughout the city that shows the speed as the vehicle's approaching. But what allows us also to do is track the speed of the cars and the traffic counts of the cars. So we can see, we'll install these, and then we will see what the speed is before the table's installed and how much the table decreased the speed. Another piece in this legislation, since we increased the budget, is we are going to pilot one or more permanent speed tables. It's something that we will put down, and then we will see how they go through the winter. This winter hasn't been a real good example, but we're not going to talk about this winter in snow, so, because you know it'll happen when we do that. Also is in this is a placeholder to try some alternate speed reduction things, maybe a bump out or chicane type of thing. There's been no design on that yet, but there is money in this legislation to allow us to do that. We don't have the locations chosen yet. Michelle will be in touch with all of you once we get more community feedback where these should go. And we will be, we'll let you know exactly where the permanent ones will be, so you can go and look at them yourselves and see how they're affecting the speed. And there again, with the solar radar feedback, we'll see how, if there's a difference between the permanent table and the temporary table on reducing speeds. I'm going to turn it over to Annette Pitt. She's going to talk about some of the things with APD and their rolling their speed monitoring equipment and how we're going to leverage some of that also.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Chairman Kamer. So currently, we have 12 speed trailers, which I believe you had asked about before. So we wanted to clarify that we found out a little bit more about those and just wanted to update you all about the status. So they were bought over a dozen years ago, the 12, and currently 6 are operational, but the other 6 have needed to be used for parts to maintain the 6 that are working. And while the 6 that are not working could be updated, it would cost about $2,000 to $3,000 a piece, and that's not even an exact quote, because they haven't done the work to see exactly what would be needed. And one of the barriers and things about doing that, it doesn't really make sense because there's been such an amount of software updating that with the current ones, even the 6 that are operational, they have to be serviced in this way. The officers have to go out to the actual trailer to retrieve a drive on which the information is stored. Then they bring that drive back, and there's only one computer that has that software that can analyze the data. And then they take that, they have to analyze it, then they have to take that one drive and drive back out to the trailer to put the drive back into the trailer. Whereas nowadays, the new trailers that you can buy that do the same job do it far more effectively. Of course, we know how software is gone and they're Wi-Fi connected, so it all happens in the lickety-split and you get all the information and you can analyze it, and the software is cloud-based, so it doesn't have to be on one computer only. The rough estimate at the moment is that new trailers, new machines with new software would cost somewhere between $11,000 to about $13,000, but that's not a definite cost. That would need to be researched more concretely. The goal would be to purchase 6 of those and then in time to return to the number of 12. So if there could be a purchase of another 6 at a later time. I hope that that is sufficient information, and we would certainly take any questions that you have. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all that information. I'll go ahead and start with the committee members if they have any questions or comments for Councilman Lombardo.
Thank you. Just to, so I have my notes straight, 12 trailers, 6 are operational, 6 are used for parts. Okay, yeah. And then each, we're trying to get 6 more at about 11,000 to 13,000 with better software. It goes right into you know, the system, right? Okay, that's good. Yeah. So, well, I don't know if this is a question for you, but, you know, those drives, I know that they, you know, took them back and saw that, okay, yeah, we have a problem there. But would there be any radar, you know, live radar on those streets that there's problems? I don't know if that's a question for you. Because I think that's, you know, we have all the data, it seems like, for all the streets that are, you know, common for speeding, but it kind of stops there with the data.
I mean, I don't want to answer for APD, but the current staffing level and what they're, you know, going from call to call, you know, this, I know speeding's a high priority, slowing people down, but they just don't have the resources currently. I think they would like to eventually get to that point. So we're going to leverage this information from not only our solar signs, but also from the cameras in the trailers to try to do some traffic calming items. But like I said, I don't answer for APD, but when we've talked to them, that's pretty much their hindrance right now, is just, you know, prioritizing everything that's going on and going from call to call, yes. And Nanette's correct about the solar signs. They have, you know, that technology where we don't have to visit the sign. It's cloud-based, we get that information, we download it. So it has like a cell signal in each one of those. So in this legislation, it is to take the existing 40 and there's money in there to get another year of data off the 40 we received. So the new 40 we're buying, the data is included in the price, and then in this legislation, there'll be money to collect the data for another year off the other 40. So we'll have 80 of those out there.
Right,
And Councilman Lombardo, I will ask that question and come back to you.
right.
Yeah.
So you'll come, or the APD will come with legislation for these new trailers later?
I believe so, yes, in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman, any other committee members? All right, Councilwoman Omobian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Ludlow, I'm happy to hear that we're talking about permanent tables. What I'm curious about, are we talking about the same tables that we were putting down temporarily, or we're talking about, I know some communities use concrete and different things to build up these bumps or humps, whichever one you want to call them. What are we talking about? The same material?
No, ma'am, they would either be concrete or asphalt.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing that.
You're
that we're
welcome. You're
going
welcome.
to more permanency. So I think that's the right direction. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, everyone. Any other questions or comments? I can't really see. I see Linda's popping up on my screen. Let me see. All right, Sarah, I can't really see because for some reason Linda's still on my screen as a gallery view.
Sure.
Well, it's the beauty. That's what it is.
Yeah.
There are no hands raised here in chambers,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the presentation from both the mayor's office, well, Chris Ludlow and the chief of staff. I will say I appreciate and I applaud the mayor for increasing the budget for speed calming devices, because obviously this is probably my #1 phone call that I get above any other phone calls in Ward 7. And I will go ahead and say this too, and I'm anxious to see what APD is doing in regards to, I know there's limited resources, but I know as a former public safety chairman, there was a lot of legislation and a lot of spending on a lot of radar enforcement technology that came my way. And I'm eventually would like to get an update on where all these radar guns are and all this technology and some of the overtime that we've okayed and allocated for speed enforcement, because I'll always stand with speed enforcement and giving out any tickets that are deserving. Obviously, I'd appreciate it if we would give out warnings first, but you know, in the neighborhoods, if people are speeding, if anyone gives me a call and is upset because they got a speeding ticket, I'll go ahead and stand with the APD and the city 100% on that. So just wanted to say that. So thank you, Chris, for your hard work. And like I said, I applaud the mayor for increasing the budget on this and trying to see what we can do to curb the speeding. So, Chris, what are your pleasure on this one?
Sir, if we can request to suspend the rules so we can get this material ordered this year.
Sure.
Motion to suspend the rules with favorable report.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for suspension of the rules. All in favor? Aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right. Thank you, everyone. Nothing further. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Our next committee today will be the Public Safety Committee. Those committee members are McKittrick, Kamer, Lombardo, Hannah, and Davis. We do have all committee members present except for Councilwoman Davis. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'd like to call the Public Safety Committee to order, and if I could get a motion to approve our previous minutes from our previous meeting.
Yeah, I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Our first piece is, we have two pieces today. The first one is an ordinance approving certain rules proposed by City of Akron Citizens Police Oversight Board and declaring an emergency. Mr. Angeloni?
Thank you, Councilman. Committee, I'd just like to put forth here today, we have a revised set of rules for the Citizens Police Oversight Board. I'm going to let Mr. Gippen, who's here from the board, speak to those in more detail about how that unfolded. But we would, in light of, we're happy to be here today, but in light of the timing of things, we are going to be asking for favorable report and suspension of the rules if the committee deems it appropriate. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Mr. Gippen.
Mr. Gippen?
Mr. Chairman, thank you, members of council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Just to recap the process since we were here last, once the new administration was in place, in particular, we began discussions about amendment of the rules to hopefully conform to what the sentiment of council was as expressed to us the last time. We had a very good process, I have to say, and I've really have appreciated the cooperation of the law department in getting this draft together, kind of just working it through. I know the board appreciates that, and we're very comfortable with this. These rules are not what we originally brought to you. Candidly, they are not what we would have wanted to have at this time. But they are certainly rules with which we can easily live and under which we can readily do our work. It's been said, and I'll say it again today, we hope, we intend to bring some recommendations to the administration later in the year that we hope might be brought to the bargaining table with the FOP this summer. And it may be that changes to these rules might be among the things that we would ask the city to advocate for, but that's down the line. There are two major respects in which these rules differ from the ones that we brought to you in, December. The one, probably the most significant change is that it makes it clear that the board, and I'm going to say the board, hope that's the board and its staff, the board would not undertake any actions, whether you want to call that, investigation or what the term may be, will not undertake any action until after APD has completed its work and reported. And that would be on citizen complaints, use of force, use of deadly force. So that's probably the major change that is made in these rules. There's some changes that are frankly just better drafting. I think we've appreciated the law department's help with that. The other major difference between this set and the previous set are that any of our procedures, and once these are in place, we will begin drafting operating procedures for ourselves. We will bring those to council for approval, as opposed to their just being implemented upon our vote. And we understood those to be the two things that were objectionable in the previous set, and those have been changed. Should say that we sent the rules to the FOP a week ago, I want to say. And there was some conversation, I think it was primarily with the law department, with them, and our understanding is that they have no objection to these rules. I was actually listening to a phone conversation Wednesday night when we were here. So unless you've heard something to the contrary, my understanding is that these are okay with the FOP, they are okay with the administration, and they're certainly okay with us. So we would very much appreciate your approval. As Mr. Angeloni said, there is some urgency to our having rules in place that are approved rules. So we hope that, again, assuming that they're acceptable, that you might act on them tonight. And I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Gippen. Really, today we had a meeting earlier with the administration, and Mr. Angeloni got a copy of the March 2023 suggested rules that was given to the board by the law department. I respectfully really wanted to take time on this, past this, to be able to digest that, compare that to the present rules, to the rules that the board had brought in, and look at all the variances of all that. And at this point, I've not really had time to look at that and do all those comparisons. So that's somewhat of my, as the chair, the recommendation I would like to have is to be able to take time, even though next week is a holiday, and would actually drag things out 2 more weeks. But is there something that's extremely pushing that would really prohibit
Mr.
that?
Chairman, yes, I hope council's aware that we are hopefully in the final stages of hiring a police auditor, which is vital to our operation. I mean, we've been struggling this year. For a long period of time, we had no staff. But we need an auditor. And I trust that all of you have received the invitation to meet with us and with, his name is Anthony Fennell, what's it going to be, Wednesday morning at 10:30, I want to say. And hopefully, as many of you as possible could join us and have a chance to meet him. There's a public forum that evening, and there are some meetings then on Thursday. So our hope is that, again, assuming that all goes well with the community and with Mr. Fennell, that we would vote on him at our meeting on the 21st. Now, nothing would keep us from having a special meeting. I have to say I will not be here on the 28th, but I'm hopeful that my vote may not be necessary. I think things are shaping up. I hope we may have unanimity on Mr. Fennell, but we had hoped to be able to vote on him on the 21st. I don't think that I don't want to speak for the law department, but I doubt they'd be comfortable with us taking that action without approved rules.
Any comments or questions from the committee members? Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you. I'm reading these, or I've read them, not fully. I just have some questions myself with regard to subpoenaing, people or whatever. So that's why I'm in favor of time, if that's possible. That's what I'd like to clear up.
Mr. Lombardo, if it'd be helpful, I'd be happy, if you have questions at this time, I'd be happy to speak to them.
So I don't have the things highlighted, but, the board having the authority to review, investigate, whether the investigations are complete. There's just certain line items in here that I just want to make sure that, we're all operating on the same page. So that I just want to really write down all my questions and then submit them to see how all that shakes out.
Thanks, Mr. Lombardo. Councilperson Kamer, I see your hand was up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Yes, I actually looked over this legislation and the rules over the weekend, and I looked at them this morning. I do have a few questions. My number one reason why I would like to take time is because I understand we've heard that I haven't heard from the FOP, and I would like to hear from the FOP to give them a chance to verbally or in a written statement come out and say that they're in favor of these rules and everyone can work together. I know I said that last year when I was public safety chairman and this came through the committee. One of the things I said was I want everyone to come together, come to the same table and meet. And I do hear that today from you, but I definitely want the FOP to let us council know that they are in agreement and moving forward, everyone can work together. So that's my number one reason why I'll be voting for time today. Even if there's a recommendation for suspension of the rules, I won't support suspension of the rules today. But I also would like to get information, and this is my only request at the moment besides the FOP part, is I would like to get more information about Section I for the budget. I would like to know, what the annual budget would be for this committee and what some of the fees would be associated with paying the individuals for meetings. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Councilman. I just wanted the record to reflect that Councilwoman Davis has also joined the meeting here. So, any other committee members have any comments or questions? Mr. Lombardo?
Yeah. So I'm below Section I. I'm on J. As far as the board having the authority to issue and serve subpoenas for the purpose of compelling the attendance and testimony of witnesses and requesting, all documents and records and all that. So how different would your subpoena be from any other investigation that's going on with the APD?
Well, a subpoena is a subpoena. The difference, the point is that we would not be issuing subpoenas during the course of an investigation because we would have no power under these rules to undertake activity during the investigation. The key thing here, though, has been the subpoena power and as it pertains to members of the FOP. I think everybody, again, I appreciate that you would like to hear from the FOP, and that's fine, but again, our understanding is that they're comfortable with this language. And what this would mean is that an FOP member would not have to respond to one of our subpoenas if for some reason we issued one. Under their agreement, they would have the right to decline the subpoena, and that we would undertake no effort to enforce the subpoena. And Mr. Lombardo, maybe to explain how this would work in practice, and the subpoena power derives from the charter. I mean, that is in issue 10. The board itself has no power to enforce its subpoenas. The way it would work is that if we issued a subpoena and the person subpoenaed declined to comply, The process then would be that we would go to the law department, and we would request them, it's actually, I think it is in effect a lawsuit. We would ask them to commence a lawsuit in common pleas court to enforce the subpoena. You know, it is the court that enforces the subpoena under the contempt power. You know, so that is the process. So what this means in terms of relationship with the FOP and its officers, again, let's just, for whatever reason, if we issued a subpoena to an FOP member, all right, and the FOP, and again, it's very, very hypothetical, but we would not seek to enforce it. My guess is the law department would come back to us and say, there is no power to enforce it. So the whole idea is that unless an officer for some reason wanted to comply with a subpoena, I mean, I know as a lawyer, sometimes you get witnesses who, for their own various reasons, they're willing to testify, but they want to be doing it under subpoena. Conceivably, an officer might decide to be subpoenaed, and that's fine. But if they don't want to comply, we're not going to enforce it. Does that make it more clear, sir?
And if I may too, Councilman, what is important as well is that many of these statements regarding subpoenas, there is qualifying language that follows it. So in other words, it is very important that the language suggesting that no subpoena can compel testimony that would violate the employee's constitutional rights or violate other rights granted by federal, state law, or the collective bargaining agreement. All of that sort of insulates and protects that provision. So the power, as Mr. Gippen alluded to, is referenced in the charter. What kind of enforcement mechanism would the board actually have to do that? It's questionable. It is in the charter. So if we preface all of that with these protective provisions saying, but it's not going to violate other law, collective bargaining agreements, things like that, we have a fair amount of comfort that that's okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Councilwoman Amobian, you have a question or comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Gippen for coming before us, and also the committee for all the work they've been doing without having their rules approved by the council. I think that's one thing that they need, is to have that. Additionally, I know that you have been operating without an auditor, and I hate to see us continue to stall that, because you really need someone there to do the work. And I know you've had an interim person there to help you out. It doesn't appear that you're going to have the votes to pass this tonight. And I'm not really sure how you proceed with your candidate that you have. So that concerns me. But I want you to know that this committee has gone back and made changes based on recommendations from council that were made before. So they are taking the concerns that have been expressed into consideration. The other thing that I want to point out is that the reality of having this board in place, we realize that everybody is not comfortable with this. This is our first time doing this, and there are a lot of concerns expressed. But I think the important thing that we have to realize is that the citizens overwhelmingly approved issue 10, and we have to move forward, even with the uncomfortableness that we are feeling. But it sounds like the law department and FOP and the board are all comfortable enough to move forward with this. So I would love for us to get this off the ground and have the board have the approval from council of their rules. And because even with passing this tonight or whenever we choose to, you can still go ahead later and make some recommendations for changes or improvement or whatever the case may be. I don't think by voting to approve it, that we are forever not allowed to make any recommendations for changes. And I'm sure the board is going to learn some things as they continue to do their work. So I would be willing to support approval, but I'm not on the committee. I realize that. But I just want to thank Mr. Gibbon and know that the work that they've been doing has been challenging, but they've been working without the approval of their rules, and they really need these rules in place. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Any other comments by any council people or committee members at all? Is there, Councilman Kamer?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just finally, before we vote, I would like to hear from the FOP. As a legislator, as a city council person, that's how I vote. I don't vote on he said, she said, all due respect. So I would like to hear from them, and then I'll make my decisions then. So that's all I wanted to state. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilman. Any other questions from committee members or other council members? Is there a recommendation by the any of the committee members?
I'd like to make a motion for time.
There's a motion for time. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whoever came.
Would you like me to do a roll call
Aye.
on that?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Aye.
I'm not sure I heard everyone at the same time, so if it's okay, I'll go ahead and do a roll call.
Thank you.
McKittrick,
Aye.
Kamer,
Aye for time.
Lombardo,
Aye.
Hannah,
Aye.
and Davis.
Aye.
The motion for time passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next piece we have coming before us is a resolution opposing and objecting to the application of William L. Cosgrove Jr. Doing business as Absolute Lounge, 436 East South Street, Akron, Ohio, 44311 for a Class D1, D3, D3A liquor permit, 9624158, now pending before the Division of Liquor Control and declaring an emergency. Yes, Mr. Morgan, do you have some information for us, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just so, because we see some new faces, Craig Morgan, Chief City Prosecutor. And to my left here is Jess Connell. She's our domestic violence prosecutor. Jess also coordinates our office's response to offenses that affect our citizens' quality of life and neighborhood issues, such as liquor permit premises that operate outside the lines. We're here today because I had a chance to speak to Councilman Hannah about a permit premise located, an application for a permit premise at 436 South Street. And just for context for everybody, there are three types of applications. There's an application for a new permit for a brand new establishment. There's transfer applications for somebody that has one in one location in Akron trying to move it to another. And then there's the annual renewals, which I certainly will have a chance to talk to some of you more about throughout the year. The annual renewals all occur here in the city of Akron, Summit County in October. I've spoken to Mr. Lombardo about a particular place. The new application here, it is very closely located to another establishment that was a scourge for the neighborhood that was formerly at the location of 456 East South Street. We objected to that permit here within the last few years. The city was successful, and the establishment lost its on-premise. The D-class permits are for on-premise consumption. Having been to the area so much, and I'm sure Councilman Hannah could go into detail if he so choose, the neighborhood is very close to the establishments. And so this area is just uniquely compromised by any establishments, particularly ones that operate late. And the D3 application that you see here, there's a D1, D3, and D3A. The D3A is sort of a rider to liquor permits that allows an establishment to operate from 1 a.m. to 2:30 a.m. So the applicant is looking to operate pretty late at night. As many of you know, if this resolution passes, it simply it triggers the administrative hearing here locally before the Division of Liquor Control for the state of Ohio. If the city is successful in the objection locally, there's a hearing before the Liquor Control Commission in Columbus. And if anybody has any questions or comments, I'm certainly happy to answer.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Hannah?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I oppose this liquor permit because for years we have been trying to not dry the area up, but make the area a safe place to live. Just 4 years ago, a young lady was shot right down the street from the location that is applying for the liquor license. I've lived in that area for over 25 years, so I know what's happening in that area. And I know as soon as the liquor license is approved, we're going to have hell in that area again. Just the last 3 years, I've been able to sleep all night. The second issue is there's no parking for that facility. They park all on everybody's property, on the lawn, everywhere. And so I strongly oppose that liquor license. I mean strongly oppose. And if I have to go to Columbus, I will go to Columbus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hannah. Any other questions by any committee members? Any other council members? What's your pleasure, sir?
If I could, Mr. Chair, we only get 30 days to respond, and with the holiday next week, our objection is due on the 26th, so I'd ask for a suspension of the rules.
Could I get a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion to suspend the rules with a favorable report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll get that out tonight.
Thank you, everyone.
And I don't think we have anything else to come before us. Public safety will be adjourned. Thank you.
Our next committee will be the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and it will begin at 3:30. Those committee members are Fusco, McKittrick, Connor, Garrett, and DeShazier. Again, that's the Housing and Neighborhood Assistance Committee, and it will begin at 3:30. Thank you.